Also, what shows you how he was at the forefront of defending this deen is what occurred on the day of Badr. So he's also a Badri. He's someone that participated in the first battle of Islam. And subhanAllah, the youth, including Abdullah radiallahu anhu, they had a role to play with taking down the greatest tyrant known in our history, who is Abu Jahl, the pharaoh of this ummah. On the right, what was narrated from the people that had a role in taking this pharaoh down. Abdurrahman ibn Auf looked around in his rank, meaning where he was, and he saw two Ansari youths, so not Abdullah radiallahu anhu, but two other youths. And one of them approached him and asked, "Do you know Abu Jahl?" The Rahman said, "Yes, I know him. What are you going to do to him?" The young man answered, I promise Allah when I see Abu Jahl, I'm going to walk towards him, and I'm going to kill him, or I'm going to be martyred." Now the Rahman ibn Auf admired this young man and appreciated his determination and courage. Meanwhile, the other youth approached, meaning it was his twin brother, and said the same things. Now the Rahman ibn Auf first said to himself, I ended up between two children in the rank. Then he was amazed by their bravehorse. The battle then started, and those two young men, this is their names, Mu'ad and Mu'awwid, two of the 7 children of Afra, and they took part in this battle. So the battle started, as we said, and Abdurrahman ibn Auf saw Abu Jahl, who was wandering amongst the polytheists, and he was guarded by the members of the sons of Makhzum. And this tribe, Makhzum, was a tribe of Khalid ibn Walid. So they weren't an easy tribe. Despite this, Abdurrahman ibn Auf says to these two twins, there's Abu Jahl. Do you think that the fact that he had these men to guard him deterred them? No. Because these were lions of Islam. But I want to highlight one thing here. Look at the cooperation between the youth and the elders. And this is something that's missing in our community today. We don't see this link. But this was a link which was very, very visible between the Sahaba. And the link between the elders and the youth has to be one like the driver of a car. Why? Because the horsepower needs to be controlled by someone skilled. The likeness of that car with high horsepower is our youth. Our youth are very zealous. But zeal isn't a bad thing. It's only destructive when it's not directed, and who should be directing it? The elders. So the elders like the driver. So this should be the relationship between the elders and the youth. Like the driver of the car with a high horsepower that controls it in the direction to do good and not do bad. So this is similarly what occurred with Abdurrahman ibn Auf and these two twins. So they weren't deterred that Abu Jahl had this guarding, and they approached Abu Jahl. They drew their swords and walked towards that direction, and they began to strike him. And Abu Jahl as well struck them back. So he didn't back down. But look how brave they were. It said that one of the twins, his arm was chopped and hanging off a few ligaments. But in his perseverance and his determination to get Abu Jahl, some of the narration said that as the arm was hanging, he stood on the hand and ripped it off because it was annoying him, and it was a barrier between him and Abu Jahl. So look at the bravery of these lions, subhanAllah. And they began to strike Abu Jahl until he was presumed dead. And look what he says about his hand. He says, my hand was hanging down, or his arm was hanging down with its skin. He says, I forgot about it due to the severity of the battle. I held my wounded hand at the back and continued fighting. When my hand started to give me a lot of trouble, I stepped on it with my foot and cut the hanging hand off. And this is found in the Sirah of Ibn Hisham. So the Prophet ﷺ, after the battle had ended, he wondered if Abu Jahl had perished. And he said, who will go and find out? And who do you think volunteered? Another lion from the youth of Islam, our lion tonight, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So upon finding him, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud says, Are you Abu Jahl? And mind you, he hated this, because he was referred to as being Abu al-Hakam from the Mushrikeen, yani the father of wisdom. But then him turning away from Islam, the Prophet ﷺ titled him Abu Jahl, the father of ignorance. So then when he found out it's Abu Jahl, he stepped on his neck and he said, "O enemy of Allah." Eventually Allah humiliated and ruined you, see? And look how cocky this Pharaoh was even at the time of death. He says to Ibn Mas'ud, "O shepherd, you're on a very steep place. It is not something that happened now for a great man to be killed by his own tribe. Now tell me which party is victorious today." Look how cocky he was, subhanAllah. Even ponder over the real Pharaoh. How was he in the time of death? He came to his senses. He wanted to claim Iman. And he says, "Now I believe in what was revealed to Musa." He had a bit of humbleness and recollection, but look at the Pharaoh of this ummah. None. Still cocky in the time of death. So Ibn Mas'ud said, "The victory belongs to Allah and His Rasul." Making him desperate in his last seconds, Abu Jahl, who became very sorrowful, expressed his unbelief again and said, "Say to Muhammad, I was his enemy up to him. My enmity has increased twofold from now on." Mind you, this is his last moments. Thereupon this, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud cut off his head immediately. And then we benefit from this, that Abu Jahl died a disbeliever, but not just any disbeliever, an arrogant, cocky disbeliever. And then Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu took his head, threw it to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he said, "He is the head of Abu Jahl, the enemy of Allah." And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam praised Allah, saying, "Allahu Akbar, لَقَدْ قُتِلَ فِرْعَوْنُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ." He said, "Glory be to Allah." And in other narrations he says, "Praise be to Allah who helped his slave and made his religion superior." Then he said, "This is the Pharaoh of this nation." So this was one of the stanzas of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu.